My parents stole my $55,000 college fund for my sister's Sweet 16, so I sued them, got it back, and now they want me to help her with college. Hey Reddit, I'm 20, female, and I've been wanting to talk about something that's been bothering me for years. Family favoritism, specifically the way my parents treat my younger sister, Madison, 18, female, like she's the center of the universe. It's not just a feeling, it's a fact, and I've got receipts. Madison has always been the favorite. You know those memes about the golden child versus the scapegoat? That's my life. If Madison wants something, my parents will move mountains to make it happen. When she asked for the latest iPhone, they got it for her within a week. But when I asked for a replacement for my ancient phone that could barely hold a charge, it was like I asked for a private jet. I had to save up and buy my own. That kind of thing has been happening for as long as I can remember. Like, back in high school, I worked my butt off on this big art project for a local competition. Art has always been my thing. It's my escape, my passion, and, honestly, my dream career. I won first place, which was a huge deal to me. There was an award ceremony, and I told my parents about it weeks ahead of time. I thought, maybe, just maybe, they'd come and celebrate with me. Nope. The day of the ceremony, they told me they couldn't make it because they had errands to run. Errands? For real? I went alone and ended up asking a friend's mom to take pictures of me holding my trophy because, of course, I wanted to remember that moment. My parents didn't even ask to see the photos later. But the part that really stung, a few months later, Madison joined a dance competition. She didn't even win, she got second place. But my parents went all out. They bought her flowers, took her out to dinner, and wouldn't stop talking about how proud they were of her. I sat there that night, watching them gush over her like she just won an Oscar, thinking, why wasn't my art award enough? It wasn't jealousy. It was more like this deep, aching feeling of being invisible. And it's not just about achievements. Madison gets away with everything. If she breaks a rule or screws up, my parents shrug it off. She's young, they'll say, or she's just figuring things out. But if I make even the smallest mistake, oh, I get the full lecture. They'll talk about how I need to set a better example, how I'm the older sister and should know better. Blah, blah, blah. One time, Madison accidentally backed into the mailbox with my dad's car before even getting her license. Instead of getting mad, they laughed it off and joked, well, it's not like she totaled it. A week later, I forgot to take the trash out on time, and my mom gave me a 20-minute speech about how I need to pull my weight around the house. Like, okay, sure. And don't even get me started on how differently we're treated when it comes to responsibilities. I've been doing my own laundry, cooking, and cleaning since I was 12. Madison? She'll literally leave her clothes on the floor and expect me to pick them up. And the worst part? My parents let her. My mom will say, just help her out. You're so responsible, and she's still learning. It's not that I expect my parents to treat us exactly the same. We're different people, and I get that. But it's like they don't even try to hide the favoritism. It's always Madison this, Madison that. I could probably invent a time machine, and they'd still find a way to make it about her. The only people who really noticed how unfair it was were my grandparents. My grandpa especially was like my biggest cheerleader. He didn't know much about art or architecture, which is what I want to do for a living. But he always encouraged me. He'd sit with me while I sketched and say things like, one day, I'm going to see your buildings on postcards. When I was 15, Grandpa told me he was starting a college fund for me. He said he knew my parents wouldn't be able to help much or wouldn't prioritize it, and he wanted to make sure I had a shot at my dreams. That moment meant everything to me. It was the first time I felt like someone believed in me. My parents didn't really say much about the college fund. I think they just assumed Grandpa was being overly generous. Madison, on the other hand, threw a fit. She cried and yelled, why doesn't Grandpa love me as much as he loves her? My parents, of course, rushed to comfort her, telling her she was just as special. Meanwhile, I stood there, feeling like I wasn't even allowed to have this one thing without it turning into another Madison thing. I've always been the quiet one in the family. I don't like drama, and I've tried so hard not to let the favoritism get to me. But it's hard when it's everywhere. When I was in high school, I started spending more time at my grandparents' house. It was the only place I felt like I could breathe. Grandpa would help me brainstorm ideas for my sketches, and Grandma always had cookies ready when I came over. At home, though, it's like nothing I do is ever enough. My parents will go on and on about how Madison is so talented and has such a bright future, but when I talk about my dreams of becoming an architect, they barely acknowledge it. One time I showed my mom a sketch I was really proud of, and she just glanced at it and said, "That's nice." Meanwhile, Madison's random TikTok dances get full-blown applause. I guess what I'm trying to say is, it sucks feeling like you're second place in your own family. It's not even about wanting to be the favorite. I just want to feel like I matter too. Now, let me tell you about the turning point that finally pushed me over the edge with my family. I'll admit, I'd put up with the favoritism for way too long, but by the time I was 16, it was impossible to ignore. It wasn't just about Madison getting better stuff or being the center of attention anymore. It got so much worse. Let me set the scene. One day, my mom got a credit card bill in the mail, and it was way higher than usual. I'm talking hundreds of dollars in charges for clothes, makeup, and even tickets to some concert. Naturally, my mom lost her mind. She called me downstairs, waved the bill in my face, and started accusing me of spending her money. I was stunned. First of all, I didn't even have access to her card. Second, I wouldn't spend her money even if I did. I tried to explain this, but she wasn't having it. She kept saying stuff like, "Don't lie to me," and "I raised you better than this." I pointed out that Madison had been shopping online a lot lately. Packages with her name on them were showing up at the house practically every day. I even offered to show her Madison's social media, where she'd been posting selfies in all her new outfits. But my mom just snapped, "Stop trying to blame your sister. You're the older one. Take responsibility for once." At this point, I was fuming. Madison, of course, was nowhere to be found. She was probably in her room, watching Netflix, completely unbothered. When my dad got home, I thought maybe he'd hear me out, but nope. He jumped right on my mom's bandwagon. He started yelling about how I was ungrateful and how they worked so hard to provide for me. "I'll be honest, Reddit," I snapped. I'd been keeping my head down and trying to stay out of their way for years, but this was too much. I yelled back, telling them I wasn't going to take the blame for something I didn't do. I even went upstairs, grabbed Madison's laptop, and pulled up her order history to prove it. And do you know what my mom said? "That's private. How dare you invade your sister's privacy like that? Are you kidding me?" I was sitting there, practically begging them to see the truth, and they were more worried about Madison's privacy than the fact that she'd racked up hundreds of dollars in charges on their card. That night was probably the worst fight we'd ever had. My dad kept yelling about how I was disrespectful and dishonest. My mom was crying, saying she didn't know what she'd done wrong to raise such an ungrateful daughter. Meanwhile, Madison finally came downstairs and acted all innocent, like she had no idea what was going on. She even had the audacity to say, "I don't know why you're blaming me. I don't even use Mom's card." At that point I realized there was no winning. They'd already decided I was the bad guy, and nothing I said or did was going to change their minds. So, after hours of shouting, tears, and slamming doors, I grabbed my phone and called my grandparents. When Grandpa picked up, I just broke down. I told him everything, about the credit card bill, the favoritism, and how I was always the one getting blamed for everything. He didn't say much at first, but I could tell he was furious. He just said, "Pack a bag. I'll be there in the morning." The next day, Grandpa showed up early. He didn't even come inside. He just stood on the porch and told my parents, "She's coming with me. She deserves better than this." My mom tried to argue, saying it was just a misunderstanding and that I was being dramatic. My dad said I needed to stay and work things out as a family. But Grandpa wasn't having it. He looked my dad dead in the eye and said, "If you cared about working things out, you wouldn't treat her like a scapegoat." I'll never forget the look on my mom's face when I walked out the door with my suitcase. She looked shocked, like she couldn't believe I was actually leaving. Living with my grandparents was like stepping into a different world. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. They didn't treat me like an afterthought or a punching bag. They actually cared about me. Their house felt like home in a way my parents' house never did. I could actually relax without worrying about what Madison was up to, or how my parents were going to find a way to blame me for it. And the best part? They supported my dreams. Grandpa kept reminding me that the college fund he started was there for me no matter what. He'd say, "You're going to do big things, kiddo. Don't let anyone hold you back." It wasn't always easy, though. My parents would call every now and then, trying to guilt trip me into coming back. My mom would cry about how much she missed me, and my dad would say I was being immature for running away. But I didn't care, I wasn't going back. Madison, of course, acted like nothing had changed. She'd text me sometimes, asking for advice about random stuff or sending me TikToks she thought were funny. It was like she didn't even realize how much damage she'd caused. Honestly, I didn't care anymore. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was in a place where I could actually focus on myself and my goals. Living with my grandparents wasn't just a safe haven, it was a fresh start. But life has a way of turning everything upside down. And during my senior year of high school, I got hit with one that changed everything. My grandparents passed away within months of each other, first grandpa, then grandma. Losing them shattered me. They were my safe haven, the only ones who treated me like I mattered, and just like that, they were gone. In the middle of all the grief, I had to handle the responsibilities they left behind. They had been organized people, and everything in their will was laid out clearly. They left me their house, a modest little place but full of love and memory. And then there was the college fund Grandpa had been saving for me. That college fund was his pride and joy. He'd been putting money into it for years. When I opened the envelope with the account details, I saw the number, $55,000. It was enough to give me the head start I needed. At first, I didn't even want to touch the money. Thanks to a scholarship, my first year of college tuition was covered, and I was able to handle my living expenses by working part-time jobs. I lived alone in the house my grandparents left me, juggling classes and work. It was a lot, but I managed. But when my second year of college rolled around, my scholarship ended, and I knew I'd have to use some of the fund. It wasn't an easy decision. Part of me felt like spending that money meant letting go of Grandpa somehow, but I reminded myself that this was exactly why he'd worked so hard to save it. I remember logging into the account late one night. I had my tuition bill in front of me, and I was doing the math in my head, figuring out how much I'd need to transfer. But when I saw the balance, my heart stopped. It wasn't $55,000 anymore. It was $5,000. At first I thought I'd made a mistake. Maybe I had the wrong account. Maybe I'd typed something wrong. I logged out and back in, but the number didn't change. I stared at the screen, feeling a mix of confusion and panic. Where did the money go? The next morning, I went to the bank to figure it out. That's when the truth started to unravel. The account had been drained over the past couple of years, through dozens of withdrawals. I could barely make sense of it, until I saw the names attached to the transactions, my parents. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but it was impossible to ignore the evidence. They were listed as secondary beneficiaries on the account, a decision Grandpa must have made out of trust or convenience, and now they'd taken everything. I spent the rest of the day in a fog, trying to process what I'd learned. My grandparents had worked so hard to give me a shot at a better future, and my parents had taken it all. I didn't know whether to scream, cry, or just give up. Later that evening, I called my mom. I couldn't just let this slide without getting an explanation. I kept my voice calm, even though I was shaking. Hey, I was checking Grandpa's college fund, and most of the money is gone. Do you know what happened to it? There was a long pause before she answered, and when she finally spoke, her tone was defensive. What do you mean it's gone? Are you sure you're looking at the right account? I told her I'd already been to the bank, and knew she and Dad had withdrawn the money. That's when she dropped the act and admitted what they'd done. We used it for Madison's Sweet 16, she said, like it was no big deal. I was stunned. You spent $50,000 on a birthday party? It wasn't just the party, she said, like that was supposed to make it better. There were a lot of expenses, the venue, the catering, the decorations, plus, we got her a car. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You spent my college money on Madison's birthday party in a car? But that wasn't the worst part. Apparently, they'd also used the money to take Madison on a 2-week family trip to Europe. I say family, but guess who wasn't invited? That's right, me. They didn't even tell me they were going. Mom sighed. Like I was the one being unreasonable. You didn't need that money anymore. You had that scholarship and the house, remember? I tried to explain that the scholarship only covered my first year and didn't include living expenses, but she just shrugged it off. Sweet 16 only happens once, she said. We wanted to make it special for her. I was so angry I hung up the phone. That night, I sat in the living room of the house my grandparents had left me, surrounded by their photos and the things they'd passed down to me. It felt like a betrayal of everything they'd worked for. I've been trying to figure out my next steps. Part of me wants to let it go, just to keep the peace, but another part of me can't stop thinking about Grandpa and how proud he was of that fund. I don't know what I'll do yet, but I do know this: I'm not letting them take away my future. Thanks for reading, Reddit. If anyone has advice on how to handle something like this, I'm all ears. I'll keep you updated as I figure things out. Update 1. Hey again. First off, I want to say thanks for all the comments and advice on my last post. Some of you really helped me see that standing up for myself wasn't just the right thing to do, it was necessary. A lot of you shared your own stories about toxic family dynamics, and honestly, it made me feel a little less alone. I've been called selfish, dramatic, and ungrateful so many times that I started to believe it. But reading your words reminded me that this isn't about being petty, it's about holding people accountable. Anyway, here's where things are now. At first, I tried reasoning with them. I called a family meeting at their house and laid everything out again. I told them the fund wasn't theirs to spend, that it was meant for my education, and that they needed to pay it back. You know what they did? They laughed. Mom literally laughed in my face and said I was being so dramatic about it. We didn't spend it on nonsense, she said, as if a giant party, a car, and a European vacation weren't the definition of nonsense. Then she hit me with, "Why can't you just be happy for your sister?" This was a once-in-a-lifetime event for her. My dad chimed in with his usual guilt trip routine, saying things like, "You know we'd help you out if you really needed it, and we're family. You shouldn't be so focused on money." That was the final straw for me. I realized they weren't going to take me seriously unless I made them. I could have let it go, sure, but the more I thought about the whole situation, the angrier I got. So, I did something I never thought I'd do. I hired a lawyer. It wasn't an easy decision. I spent days going back and forth, wondering if I was blowing things out of proportion or if I'd just make things worse. But every time I hesitated, I remembered my mom laughing at me and calling me selfish for wanting what was mine. That was all the motivation I needed. When my parents got served with the paperwork, they completely lost it. My mom called me within hours, screaming about how I was tearing the family apart. She kept saying, "You're going to ruin us. Do you know how this makes us look?" I told her I didn't care how it made them look, they should have thought about that before stealing $50,000. Her response? It wasn't stealing, it was for the family. I couldn't even argue with her. What was the point? She wasn't going to admit she was wrong. So I just told her to talk to my lawyer and hung up. The fallout was immediate. My extended family found out because, of course, my mom couldn't keep quiet about it, and suddenly I was public enemy number one. My aunt called me to lecture me about family loyalty and how suing my own parents was disgraceful. My uncle chimed in too, telling me I needed to drop the lawsuit and think about what you're doing to your mom. It was like no one cared about what my parents had done to me. The entire focus was on how I was making them feel. I didn't even respond. What was the point? My dad wasn't much better. He tried by saying I was being too harsh and that suing them wasn't the right way to handle things. He kept saying, "We're family. We can work this out." But when I asked him how they planned to pay me back, he dodged the question. That's when I knew I'd made the right call. They weren't going to pay me back unless they were forced to. The hardest part has been how lonely this all feels. Most of my family has taken my parents' side, saying I'm overreacting or being ungrateful. It's like they're completely ignoring the fact that my parents stole money meant for my education and blew it on Madison. But a few of you said something that really stuck with me. If standing up for yourself makes people mad, those people never respected you in the first place. That's been my mantra through all of this. The situation has made me realize just how toxic my family dynamic really is. My parents raised Madison to believe she deserves everything, and they raised me to accept nothing, and now that I'm pushing back, they don't know how to handle it. My mom even threatened to disown me if I didn't drop the lawsuit. She called me, crying, saying things like, "Do you really want to destroy our relationship over money?" I told her it wasn't just about money, it was about trust, respect, and the fact that what they did was wrong. She hung up on me. Honestly, her threat didn't scare me. I've been on the sidelines of this family for so long that the idea of being disowned doesn't mean much. It's not like they've ever really been there for me. Right now, things are tense, to say the least. My parents are trying to rally the family against me, and I'm just here, trying to keep my head above water. My lawyer says it's going to be a long process, but I'm ready for it. This isn't just about getting the money back. It's about standing up for myself after years of being treated like I didn't matter. My parents might not see it that way, and, honestly, I don't expect them to. But for the first time in my life, I'm putting myself first. That's where things are for now. Thanks again for all the support and advice. It's been a rough road, but knowing I'm not alone has made it a little easier. I'll keep you updated as things progress. If you've been through something similar, I'd love to hear how you handled it. Update 2. Hey, Reddit, here's the update you've been waiting for. Buckle up, because things got messy. But I held my ground. So, if you've been following along, you know I hired a lawyer after my parents drained my college fund to pay for Madison's Sweet 16. Let me tell you, the legal battle that followed was no joke. I'm talking months of back and forth, tons of paperwork, and more family drama than I ever thought possible. The whole process was exhausting. Every time I thought we were making progress, they'd throw another excuse at us. My lawyer would send them a letter, and instead of responding, they'd wait until the last possible second, hoping I'd back down. They were dragging it out on purpose, probably thinking I'd eventually give up, but if they thought I was going to roll over and let them win, they didn't know me at all. After months of this nonsense, they finally realized I wasn't bluffing. The pressure must have gotten to them because my dad called me one night and said, "All right, we're ready to talk about a solution." Translation: they knew they were about to lose and wanted to cut their losses. Here's where things got real interesting. My parents didn't have the full amount, of course, so they had to scramble to come up with the money. My dad ended up selling Madison's car, the one they'd bought her with my college fund, and a few other valuables to scrape together most of what they owed me. When I heard about the car being sold, I won't lie, I felt a little vindicated. That car was the ultimate symbol of their favoritism, and watching it get taken away felt like some kind of cosmic justice. But Madison? Oh, she did not take it well. She started blowing up my phone with these long, hateful texts. According to her, I was the worst sister ever, and all of this was because I was jealous of her. She kept calling me petty and selfish, saying things like, "You're ruining the family over some stupid money." I didn't respond to any of it. Honestly, what was the point? She's been coddled her entire life, and now that she was facing even a fraction of the consequences, she couldn't handle it. If she thought her texts were going to make me feel bad or change my mind, she was dead wrong. Meanwhile, my mom was doing her best to play both sides. She'd call me one day, crying and apologizing, and the next day, she'd send me passive-aggressive texts about how I was destroying our family bond. She even tried to pull the classic, "You're going to regret this when we're gone." As if her emotional manipulation tactics were going to work after all this. The truth is, by this point, I didn't care what they thought. This wasn't about making them feel bad. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, we reached an agreement. They sold enough stuff to repay most of the money, and we worked out a plan for them to pay back the rest over time. It wasn't ideal, but it was better than nothing. Watching them finally take responsibility, kicking and screaming the whole way, was so worth it. My parents hated every second of it. My dad looked like he wanted to be anywhere else when he handed over the first payment, and my mom couldn't even make eye contact. They didn't apologize or admit they were wrong. But, honestly, I didn't need them to. Seeing their entitled attitudes crumble was apology enough. As for Madison, well, let's just say she's still throwing her tantrums. She's been telling everyone who will listen that I ruined her life by getting her car taken away. She even posted this cryptic Instagram story about how family should support each other, not tear each other down. The audacity, right? I didn't bother responding to her directly, but I did laugh a little when one of our mutual friends messaged me saying, "Wow, Madison's really showing her true colors, huh? People are starting to see through her nonsense." And honestly, that's been the cherry on top of this whole thing. Now that the legal stuff is mostly behind me, I've been focusing on what really matters, my future. I'm still working on my architecture degree, and things are finally starting to fall into place. I've got a couple of internships lined up, and for the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm on solid ground. Once the money was returned, I took a step back and really thought about what I wanted. I realized that I was done being a part of a family that never made me feel like I belonged. So, I made the decision to cut ties with my parents and Madison. They'd shown me time and time again that I was nothing more than a supporting character in their little drama. Madison, of course, took this as yet another personal attack. She sent me this long, self-pitying text about how I was abandoning the family and trying to punish her for being loved. I didn't respond. Here's where it gets a little juicy, though. Remember how my parents dried up their savings to pay me back? Well, Madison is starting college this year, and for the first time in her life, my parents can't swoop in and save the day. She'd been expecting the usual royal treatment. Fully paid tuition, new gadgets, maybe even a car to take her to and from campus. But nope. Between paying me back and their own bad financial decisions, they didn't have the money to help her. And let me tell you, the fallout has been glorious. Madison had to get a job, an actual job. She works part-time at a coffee shop now, and from what I've heard, she's miserable. She's not used to having to earn anything. And apparently, the idea of making lattes and dealing with customers is beneath her. She's been complaining to anyone who will listen about how unfair it is that she has to work while I'm living comfortably in the house my grandparents left me. The irony of it all, in her world, everything revolves around her. And now that the universe isn't bending to her will, she's falling apart. As for my parents, they're stuck trying to pick up the pieces. My mom called me a few weeks ago, crying about how hard things have been. She said Madison was struggling and asked if I could help her out financially, just until things get back to normal. I laughed, like actually laughed. I told her no, and then reminded her that they'd made their choices. They spent my college fund on Madison's Sweet 16, and now they were dealing with the consequences. My mom got all defensive and said, "We were just trying to do what was best for the family." I told her, "Well, now I'm doing what's best for me," and hung up. Honestly, I don't feel bad about it. Thanks for sticking with me through this journey, Reddit. If you've ever had to make a tough decision about cutting off toxic family members, I'd love to hear how you handled it. It helps knowing I'm not the only one out here trying to figure it all out.